My wife and I have been living outside of our home country of the United States for the past about 8 years. And as we were preparing to make our new life abroad and researching the cost of living, we would read things online like, move to Mexico and live under $1,000 a month, or move to Portugal and cut your living expenses in half. And we wondered whether or not statements like that really were true.
But it wasn't until we left the United States that we discovered the truth, which is that although the cost of living has the potential to be as low or even lower than the claims we had read, it also has the potential to be much, much higher.
We think one of the best ways to minimize costs when moving to a new country is to adopt the local lifestyle and culture. This is what I'll be discussing for the rest of this video, and I will share some specific examples on how to do this from several different places around the world.
I'll be giving you some examples from here in Malaysia.
I'll be giving you some examples from here in Spain, and I'll give some examples from Turkey, also known as 𝗟𝗶𝘃𝗁.
My name is Ryan, and my wife Emily and I have spent just over 4 years living in Turkey. We lived over a year in Malaysia and only a few months in Spain, although we may go back again for a longer period of time in the future. When we tell people how little we spend living internationally, they usually have one of three reactions. They are usually either amazed that we spend so little, or they think we are lying because they themselves have lived in these countries and there is no way to live there that cheaply, or they think we must be living a life that is completely miserable and devoid of all comfort in order to live on such a low budget. Well, I can tell you that we are not lying and we are not living in total misery. We think much of the success that we've had to spending so little is by adopting many of the customs that the local people have here. We try to live a lifestyle that is similar to their lifestyle and spend our money the way that many of our local friends spend their money. Our monthly spending costs are about $650 per month for the two of us to live in Turkey, which is pretty close to what the minimum wage is here. I made a video for International Living about our spending and lifestyle in Turkey that you can find on the International Living YouTube channel. I'll put a link on the top of the screen here and in the description below. When we lived in the United States, we lived first in a 1,500 square foot home and eventually downsized and lived in a small one-bedroom, 800 square foot townhome. When we moved to Turkey, we discovered that very few people here live in houses or townhomes. We live in the city of Izmir, Turkey's third largest city. And yeah, if you look really hard, you can find houses or townhomes in certain neighborhoods. But most people here live in apartments, and we also live in an apartment. If we had taken that American way of thinking about living in a house and tried to import that lifestyle here into Turkey, we would be spending a lot more than the roughly $650 that we spend each month. We bought a 2-bedroom apartment that was newly remodeled in a neighborhood that is considered to be at an average standard in our city of Izmir. We paid $53,000 for this apartment in early 2022 and are very happy with both the apartment and the neighborhood. If we were renting our apartment, we'd be paying around $600 per month, which is about average for a rental in Turkey right now. And these numbers here give you a rough idea of the rental costs in the other countries I'll be talking about later in this video. And as you would expect, the US has the highest rental costs. Another way we are able to lower our cost of living is by adapting to the local ways of eating. In Malaysia, for example, yeah, American food products are available in the grocery store, but they are much more expensive than local foods, and sometimes even more expensive than the same product in the US. Peanut butter is the classic example that expats talk about, and the price for this jar of 𝗟𝗶𝘃𝗶 peanut butter is just under $5 here in Malaysia. And I just looked on the Walmart website, and the current price in the US for about the same size jar is just over $3. Now, as I said, local products are very inexpensive. For example, a kilogram of rice here in Malaysia costs only $2 versus roughly double in the US for the same amount of rice. But it's not just what food we buy here, but also where we buy our food. Many Malaysian people prefer to shop in the wet markets, and we can save quite a bit by adopting this way of life and shopping at the wet markets too. A wet market in Malaysia is a big center with individual vendors selling things like vegetables and fish. And the prices at the wet markets are considerably lower than they are at the grocery stores. And people often say, there is no refrigeration. Don't you get food poisoning from buying food at the wet markets? And my answer is no, we have never gotten sick, and that is because the food is so fresh. Now let's talk about eating out in Malaysia versus the US. And the best way to make a direct comparison is to take a look at the American chain restaurants in both countries. 𝗟𝗶𝘃𝗁 is one of those restaurants, and you can see on the screen here, I've picked out a few items that are on the menus in both the US and Malaysia, and the prices in Malaysia are roughly half of what it costs to get the same item in the US. Also, these US prices do not include tax and tip, whereas in Malaysia, tax is included and the tipping is also less. If I do the same thing for McDonald's, you can see that the prices for most items in Malaysia are more than half of what they cost in the US. Although to be fair, in the US, beverage refills are generally free, which is not the case in Malaysia. Now, I would say that eating at McDonald's and 𝗟𝗋𝘃𝗁 in Malaysia is not adopting to the local lifestyle. And when we eat Malaysian food here, it is almost always cheaper than anything at 𝗟𝗋𝘃𝗁's and even McDonald's. Let's start with breakfast, and a common item Malaysian people have when going out to eat breakfast is roti canai. This is sort of a cross between a flatbread and a pancake and comes with curry dipping sauces. It's my personal favorite Malaysian food, and the first thing I get after stepping off the airplane after landing in Malaysia. It might not look that filling, but it usually fills me up, and if not, I can always get two, because at only 30 cents a piece, yeah, I'm not sure my waist can afford it, but my wallet sure can. A good option for lunch or dinner might be 𝗟𝗶𝘃𝗁𝗃, which is especially popular in Penang. It's a noodle dish with shrimp, egg, and vegetables, and is quite often found in the outdoor food courts for under $2 per serving. I think the last time that I paid $2 for a meal in the United States was from my elementary school cafeteria back in 1979. And for dinner, let's have some 𝗟𝗫 𝗠𝗏, which has a bit of Indian influence when it comes to taste. It consists of a piece of fried chicken, rice, vegetables, and a mix of curry sauces splattered on top. This particular plate of 𝗟𝗫 𝗠𝗏 that you see here is about $2. So by adopting the local lifestyle and how we eat, we could theoretically go out to eat for 3 meals in a day and spend less than $5 per person for those 3 meals. Here's a chart showing the average spending on food per person per month, and as you would expect yet again, the US is the highest. Let's move on over to Spain next, and we'll talk about transportation there. More people in Spain often get around within cities by public transportation rather than driving a car, compared to Americans who mostly drive cars. I'm not saying that people in Spain don't drive cars, they certainly do, but I have no doubt that the percentage of people in Spain using public transportation is higher than that of the United States. Not one of the hundreds of coworkers that I had over the years when I worked in the United States ever used public transportation to get to work. Everyone always drove a car. And importing this American way of transportation using only a car will most likely result in spending more. First, the price to buy a car in Spain can be quite a bit more expensive than it would be to buy the same car in the United States. Second, the price for petrol or gasoline is also quite a bit higher here in Spain, and we wouldn't want to own a car here in Spain even if it wasn't more expensive. Why would we, when public transportation is not only less expensive, but also much more readily available compared to the United States? All of the big cities, even more mid-sized cities in Spain, have metro lines. A monthly pass can be purchased for under €50 in every major city in Spain. And even the small town of 𝗟𝗶𝘃𝗁𝗃 on Spain's Mediterranean coast, where we lived for a month, has a bus service. And some cities in Spain are connected to each other by high-speed train lines, making it both cheaper and faster than driving a car. Here is the average spending on transportation per person each month for countries I've talked about in this video. So those are a few ways that adapting to the local lifestyle can save you quite a bit of money, and we do not feel like we've deprived ourselves by living this way. We actually enjoy adapting to the local lifestyle wherever we are in the world.